computer. So welcome. What I'd like to do is simply begin by saying that we're here to hear about this faithfulness group exercise that Marcelle has been developing as in relation to the her experience with the Shalem Institute. And here's some more about that from people who have been involved with it in different ways. I'm grateful that all of you are here, and I look forward to how the remainder of this hour goes. Let's see, if you are, what I might do is invite people to introduce themselves, what's your name, where you're from, and maybe just a tiny bit about the faith community that you are a part of, if you choose to do that. And if you have a computer and you're watching this on that, you can move your cursor, and down the bottom you'll see a place where you can mute or unmute. No. On your picture, you'll see it. And I'll invite you to come in and introduce yourselves. So how about if we start with Lynda, and we'll get the other people who are unmuted at present. Lynda, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. My name is Lynda Black. I live in Philadelphia, and I am a member of Central Philadelphia Monthly Meeting and Ujima Friends Peace Center, also in Philadelphia. I am also currently participating in a mutual accountability group, and I've been participating in that group for about, I think we're going on three years now. It might be over 3 years.
Great, thank you, Lynda. And Nancy, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself? Nancy? She's listening in from her son's house in Virginia, won't be using video. I'm from near Philadelphia, and I too have been participating in a MAG. It has been a wonderful grace in my life. So mutual accountability group is being used as a more or less synonym to the faithfulness group. All right, so we've got Lynda and Nancy. Michelle, would you like to say hello? I see that you're on twice, Michelle. Okay, let's circle back to Michelle. Wait a minute, let me unmute this other one. Michelle, can you hear us? All right, we'll circle back to Michelle. Paulette, would you like to say hello?
Hello.
Where you're calling in from and your faith community?
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, a member of Community Friends Meeting.
Thank you. And Jorge.
Hi.
Would you like to say hello?
Hi everybody. I am happy to be here. I am a member of Chestnut Hill Friends Meeting. I've been an attender at Madison Friends Meeting, and I am a member now of a worship group in Quito, Ecuador. I'm joining you from my hometown of Palatanga in Ecuador.
Welcome. I'm going to unmute Mercy, and maybe we can hear from Kathleen. Well, no. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathleen McCaplin. I'm a Roman Catholic sister, faith tradition Roman Catholic. Closer to my heart would be the Sisters of Mercy, of which I'm a member in this Philadelphia area. I'm part of a group that is international as well as local.
It's a delight to have you here, Kathleen.
This is my first time at a Quaker meeting.
It might interest friends that the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy was a benefactor of a Quaker.
Exactly.
And I had the benefit of learning from Kathleen about spiritual direction, and I'm so grateful. Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Lindy. I'm a member of Sandy Spring Friends Meeting in Sandy Spring, Maryland, which is where I'm calling in from on my cell phone.
Okay, and it's breaking up.
So I'm going to keep my video off most of the time.
Okay. It's a delight to see you, Wendy, and thank you so much for your participation in a prior Releasing Ministry Alliance Opps. Krista, would you care to say hello? And
hello, I'm from San Francisco Friends Meeting and got the invitation to this today, perhaps because I went to the gathering yesterday by QREC.
Great.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Quaker Religious Education Collaborative for those who are unfamiliar with that acronym. We've got two in Vancouver, is it?
My name is Laura Melly, and Viv is in the right province of British Columbia, but we're on Vancouver Island near Victoria.
Okay.
And I'd like to introduce, let me clarify, I'm a member of Chestnut Hill Meeting, but really a gypsy now out in BC. And with me is
Paula. So I've known Laura 2 to 3 years. And I guess my recent history is going up the hill here to a United Church and supporting the development of meditation there. My background primarily is Advaita, but lovely to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Susan, would you like to say hello?
Hello. My name is Susan Chest, and I'm a member of West Philadelphia Friends Meeting and Green Street. I'm working on putting together a spiritual formation group now, and that's why I'm here. It's lovely to see everyone.
It's great to have you. Benjamin, I don't think we've heard from you yet.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. I'm Benjamin Warnke. I'm a member of Brooklyn Friends Meeting in Brooklyn, New York. And very happy to be here with you.
Thanks for being with us, Benjamin. Janet Huff, how are you?
I'm Janet Huff. I am in Sandy Spring, Maryland right now, like Wendy, Patuxent watershed territory of the Patuxent people traditionally. My home meeting now is Cobscook meeting on Passamaquoddy territory, that farthest east you can go on the coast of Maine before New Brunswick, Canada.
Great. Nancy, are you there? Oh, wait a minute. We already got Nancy because she came in on a text message. Marcelle.
Hi, I'm Marcelle
Marcelle Martin, a member of Swarthmore Meeting, and I live in Chester, Pennsylvania. Glad to be here tonight.
It's great to have you too, Marcelle. Bruce Flagg.
Yeah, I'm in Orange County, California. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here, Bruce. Michelle, have we heard from you? We're having difficulty, I think.
My name's Michelle Shields. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes, we can.
good. I'm from the Honolulu Friends meeting in Hawaii.
All right. Marilyn Veitch. I could get you unmuted, I think.
Got it. Okay, hi. I'm an attender at the New London Friends meeting in New London, Connecticut. And I just joined the Nurturing Faithfulness program that Marcelle is facilitating.
Wonderful. Berta?
Hi, I'm Berta Britz from City on Gifts and Leadings there, and not been on a mutual accountability group, and I really value them from what I've observed, and I want to learn more about them.
Great. And we've got Rita. There you go, Rita.
Okay, I'm Rita Varley, and I'm a member of Central Philadelphia Monthly Meeting. And the groups I'm involved in that relate to this topic are, well, some of them are outside of Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. And I find this very exciting that we have actually an international group right here, national and international. I'm involved with a group, the Transition Movement National Group, and we have once a month we have a meeting to talk about this kind of thing, the deep connections of the spirit with all our actions, and finding ways to anchor all our activities in that source. And I'm also in the Interfaith Power and Light group, which is a wonderful group of people of all denominations that are working in a beautiful effort to, it's kind of like the Friends Committee on National Legislation, but for all religions together.
Great, Rita. Thank you. Carol Kober, or I'm not sure if that's how you say your name. Hold on.
Like that because I'm on another Zoom group. So I think it just put in my name that way.
Okay.
I'm part of a Sandy Spring meeting. I'm a member there. Hi, Wendy. And I actually came to this because I was on a group on Facebook this evening, like 5 minutes before you started. I'm very interested in participating in some interfaith interactions, and I'm on our Committee on Aging on a special project that's intergenerational. So I'd love to hear about the ways those two things might work.
Great. And we have someone on a telephone call. It's 1-860-389-4479. Might you introduce yourself, your location, and if you choose to, your faith community?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Mona Harmon Bowman. I'm part of the New London Friends meeting, and I'm glad to be on this call.
It's great to have you here, Mona. So I believe that everyone's introduced themselves, and we'd like to be able to open hearing from our panelists this evening, that starting out with Marcelle, who's going to give us a little bit of a idea of how this got started. And from Marcelle, we'll pass the baton to Benjamin, who's going to talk about his experiences with the faithfulness groups. And we'll also hear again then from Marcelle about some resources that are available. And Lynda will share her experience with the faithfulness group named a mutual accountability group that she's participated in. So take it away, Marcelle.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you about the practice of faithfulness groups, which has been a great joy and immense spiritual support in my life. I first learned about this kind of practice when I was a participant in the Shalem Institute spiritual guidance program. They had a format called peer groups for spiritual directors, and it was a way of kind of a mutual spiritual direction for spiritual directors about the ministry of being a spiritual companion to someone. And I helped form a group for Quaker spiritual directors that went on for 9 years. And toward the end of that time, my friend Laura Melly said, who's here tonight, she said, you know, this format could really be adapted for a wider use for anyone seeking to be faithful and supporting each other in that. And so we and some other friends worked on that with permission from the then director of Shalem. We modified the format, and that we've been working with that for 14 years and have more recently decided to call it faithfulness groups as a way to indicate the focus of these groups. So a faithfulness group usually involves 4 to 6 people who agree to meet on a regular basis. And the usual timing is 2 hours a month. So one meeting for 2 hours a month. And during that meeting, each 2 people have 1 hour of focus for the group. And over time, you get to present to your group 3 or 4 times a year, depending upon how many people are in the group and if you meet once a month and so forth. And so you present to the group some area of your life in which you're seeking to hear God's guidance and to be faithful to that. And the group will ask you questions to help you pay attention to your own inner deep perceptions, often things that are so subtle that you tend not to pay attention to it or give it much credence, but they'll help you pay attention to it. How is the spirit moving? How are you being nudged? What's the next step? If you know the next step and you're not taking it, why not? What's going on? So it's a wonderful opportunity to go deeper spiritually, to hear the spirit, to hear it maybe more deeply than you've had the courage to listen before, and then to speak it out loud first to the group, and the group often draws out of you more than you were willing to admit or to know. God is calling me to do this. The spirit is acting in this way in my life. I feel like the next step might be this, but I'm afraid in this way or that way, or something's blocking me. And the group really helps you sort all of that out. For those who are Quakers, this may sound familiar to a process we call the Clearness Committee, and it is similar. A Clearness Committee usually meets for 2 hours and focuses on one person and on one decision or discernment that they're making. And usually it's a big decision or discernment, and then they help them get clear what God is asking them to do. And then it ends. And a faithfulness group is a group that accompanies you over time, sort of, because once you hear clearly, God is asking me to do that or calling me to do this, you still have to discern step by step. What's the next step? How do I do this? I'm confused about this. What's the cause of that confusion? So the group accompanies you over time, and I've been part of 4 or 5 groups so far in the last 14 years. Some of them, one of them, the one that Laura and I started 14 years ago, is still going. A lot of the members are new. Some of them have moved away and started other groups. But the group gets to know you in a deep way, and you don't have to present your background information over and over again, and they can just go right to where you are now and ask you the questions that come from the Spirit. We're seeking to ask those questions that help you look at what God, what the Spirit is doing in you and in your life, rather than the sort of analytical questions that your mind has probably gone over already anyway. So I'll say more later. Maybe I'll just say briefly how these groups have really helped me have the courage to hear what God is calling me to do. And when I forget and when I lose my way, which happens all too often, they help me remember. They help me say more boldly than I dared. Their questions help me look at the bigger picture of the calling or the leading, or sometimes help me look at the finer details of it. It's just an amazing accompaniment, and it's a blessed gift that we can all give to each other.
Thank you, Marcelle. Benjamin, would you like to come in now and offer what your experience has been? And then we'll hear from Lynda.
Sure. So I learned about faithfulness groups as part of a nurturing worship program that I participated in 2 years ago now. Both Janet and Marcelle were part of that. And it came for me at a particularly sort of important part of life. And part of why it was sort of important for me is because I'd been attending Quaker meeting. I'd been a member of a Quaker meeting for more than 20 years. And I felt that I was participating, but not connecting to the Spirit or to the light or to God or whatever term we want to use. And I was eager to find another way. And I've found the faithfulness group that I've been part of for 2 years to be fairly extraordinary for a couple of reasons. And, it's sort of, for one, it was an introduction to me to a way of sort of experiencing myself that was new. I mean, I've spent, like I'm sure many of us, lots of time in therapy. I've spent a lot of time in my head. I'm sort of very used to being in those territories, in sort of the emotional, psychological part of my being and in my brain. But being in the faithfulness group really asked me to visit a part of myself that was both weirdly familiar and completely unknown. And that was and has been and continues to be a real blessing. One of the reasons it's been, I've been able to sort of begin to explore this terrain, if you will, is because I'm with these people that are doing it in front of me, once a month. And my faithfulness group is 4 people, one of whom has been a dear friend of mine for 15 years or 20 years. And the others are members of my meeting who are people that I either knew not at all or knew pretty well. But to hear them talk about how the Spirit moved in their experience in their life was sort of mind-blowing, because I had no idea that they experienced God and the Spirit in the way that they did. It was just, it was sort of flabbergasting in some cases. But we have been able, over the 2 years to start talking to one another in a way that is not just sort of new for me, but new for, there's a member of my faithfulness group who's been the clerk of our meeting for 5 years, who's been a member of the meeting for 35 years. And he said, I didn't know I could have this kind of conversation with somebody. So it's not just, it just feels like such a gift every time we finish. It's like we have been able to share with one another in a way that is, I mean, I didn't know people could talk to one another the way we talk to one another. And, you know, I am, you know, I'm not sort of the most rigid human being in the world. So it's not like, you know, it's not like that. It's just that there's a way of communicating with one another, a way of trying to listen to what is going on with one another that is past the sort of advice giving and psychological insight. You don't spend a lot of time trying to be the smartest person or the most insightful person. You spend a lot of time trying to listen to God and listening and watching other people trying to do that too. And it's a gift.
Thank you, Benjamin. I love that weirdly familiar and completely unknown. Lynda, how would you characterize your experience with the mutual accountability groups / faithfulness group?
First, I'd like to say that both Benjamin and Marcelle have echoed much of what my experience has been and my feelings about mutual accountability groups. My group is a group of 4. We've been meeting together for approximately 3 years, I think it is. And each time has been very, very powerful and sweet. You know, we enter into a space and sometimes we expect, you know, things to go a certain way, and it turns out it doesn't quite go the way that we expected. But what we realize is that Spirit has been and is a part of every single gathering that we have. My group is a group of all women. As I said, it's 4 of us. My group is people who are members, who were members of my meeting, are members of my meeting, and an attender of my meeting. We have our meetings have sometimes included opportunities to break bread with each other, and so we might gather, you know, like a half an hour in advance to have a time of sharing a meal, and then we will, you know, go into our normal 2-hour activity. Each time after our experience, and I don't think anyone has really expressed this, but after our time together, we have a chance where we really kind of analyze what the process was. How did we do? Did we sort of interfere at any point with what Spirit was doing, what Spirit was doing. So we take the time to sort of evaluate and process, and that has really been helpful to us too, so that we're checking in with each other about how we were with each other, how Spirit flowed, were we faithful to the inner guide. And Marcelle is probably going to go over some of this, I expect, so I won't go too much into that. But we have had some really life-changing events have happened for us through our gatherings. We have challenged each other in ways that we did not expect to be challenged, and it has been an especially beautiful time for myself personally. I can say that I have taken steps of leaps of faith that I did not, that came to fruition, that came to discovery as a result of my meeting with my 3 other MAG members, I also have to say that the group has identified traits, details, information that I would have missed about myself, about my spiritual walk. I would have missed those details without this group. I am really thankful for the intimacy that I experienced with them. One of the wonderful things about my experience with MAG is that it is an opportunity to really grow and to have a intimate fellowship with a group of people, as opposed to, going to meeting every Sunday and whatever other extra activities there might be. This is an opportunity, at least for me, this is an opportunity to really get to know someone a little deeper and to really walk with them in their spiritual lives. And it has been, as I said, life transforming. It is, someone has referenced it as a gift, and it is quite a gift. And I am especially thankful for it.
Thank you, Lynda.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to say more?
Me? Are you asking me to say more, Viv?
I'm wondering whether Marcelle has more that she'd like to say at this time. That's fine. If you have more, Lynda, we'd love to hear from you as well.
No, we move on to Marcelle.
Marcelle, I'll unmute you, or there you go.
So I can just briefly mention the format, which is basically in a 2-hour period. As I said, you focus on 2 people. So you begin with 5 minutes of worship and prayer. The first person has 15 minutes to present something to the group. The group listens deeply, not only to the words, but to how they're spoken and the spirit that's coming through. Then there's 35 minutes for deeper exploration. The group mostly asks what I'm calling evoking questions to help people look in that deeper level and speak from that. There's a short break, and then you do it over again with the second person. And as Lynda said, then at the end, there's 5 minutes for evaluation, so the group can reflect. Were we all attentive to the spirit, or did we go off in some direction, like trying to fix someone or analyze or tell our own story? So there's an opportunity each time to remember why we're here and the ways we go astray, so that the group as a group gets to learn as you go along. And then you end with a little worship, and you decide, what's the day of your next meeting. So it's a pretty efficient format. It's sometimes a little difficult to fit within the constraints of the format at first. Someone might have something very deep that they want to share, and ending at the end of that 55 minutes may seem difficult. But if you follow the format, we've learned over time that it really gives you freedom. You don't have to decide every time how much time are we going to give person A and how much time are we going to give person B, or are we going to go over our time and so forth. It really frees you up. There's a lot of room for spontaneity and what comes up in the group and how you are with each other. A person, if you know that you need something different than the usual format, you can ask for that from your group. As Lynda mentioned, sometimes my group my group often begins with having dinner together, and that's a time for sort of checking in and ordinary conversation, a time to hear from the people who won't be presenting that night. But when I was first doing this group, I was in a group with some really busy people who couldn't afford that extra time, so we just met 2 hours once a month. Each group can decide. Both Benjamin and Lynda spoke to the intimacy, the spiritual intimacy that develops in the group, and how precious that is, and how life transforming it can be, and how you can really help each other grow, help each other notice things that you wouldn't have noticed without that spiritual companionship. I have a few resources to share. One is that I've written a book called Guide to Faithfulness Groups that not only talks about the faithfulness group format, but has a section called Spiritual Practices. It's useful not only for faithfulness groups, but also for clearness committees, for spiritual friendships, ways that anyone can learn to be helpful to each other and looking at how the Spirit is moving in your life. These are really sort of spiritual direction skills, but I've learned, you know, that you don't have to be a spiritual director to help each other with these, in these particular ways, draw out how the Spirit is coming. In fact, that's one of the things that's so amazing is that people, everybody has this gift for helping to pay each other to pay attention to what God is doing, what the Spirit, the light, Christ, how that is operating in our lives and leading us. There's also a new video, a 25-minute video. The link is on the, I believe it's on the Releasing Ministry website. And there will soon be another video, a shorter one that's just on evoking questions. A lot of resources are available on my website, awholeheart.com. I have lots of pages on that website, but one is called Faithfulness Groups. And if you go to that, wholeheart.com, and the page on faithfulness groups, you'll find a link to the video. You'll find how to order the book if you want. You'll find a PDF with the guidelines that you can just download. You'll also find an audio recording of a faithfulness group that was recorded in 2006. Laura and I were part of that group, and along with some others. And some writing about faithfulness groups, basic format.
So I'll let folk know that in the chat for this call, a few items have been shared. The link to access the Guide to Faithfulness Groups. If you go to releasingministry.org and pick the About tab, there's another option to do Releasing Ministry Alliance Opps, and there you'll see a number of different resources related to the faithfulness group, including a workshop upcoming in November, which will be held at Friends Center and live streamed gratefully with funds provided by the Quaker Women in Public Ministry. So people at a distance can access that as well. One thing that I would add to what we've heard thus far is my experience with faithfulness groups. Marcelle said it's kind of like a clearness committee. And where I go with that is it's like if a clearness committee is a snapshot, a faithfulness group has the potential to be the film. And in some cases, it's the epic film, where we get to know one another in the eternal, get to know when somebody is shying away from what they're being called to, when they're stepping into it, and be present in the miracles that can take place there. So if it's okay with other folk, I'd like to be able to open this up now for question and answer. Does that sound okay, Marcelle and Benjamin and Lynda?
Yep.
And I see one question has been posted. Susan asks, do you ever feel you want to call and continue a discussion, or do you trust the process to pick up next time?
Viv, before we answer that question, I just wanted to add something which I think is important, is that my group, we meet every 3 weeks, pretty much every 3 weeks. We're not dead, on the schedule, absolutely every 3 weeks, but I just wanted to, state that, that there is some flexibility that I think is important because, sometimes people need more time, sometimes people, may need to have that kind of flexibility. So I just wanted to state that was an option that my group chose to take advantage of.
Yeah, and another thing, Lynda, is that I've heard that your group can sometimes diverge from the 15 minutes, 35-minute kind of routine. And
yeah,
that has served your group.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
As people choose. So what
Yeah.
other questions arise?
So Susan's question, Susan asked in the chat, do you ever feel you want to call and continue a discussion, or do you trust the process to pick up next time? There is a confidentiality. Not only do you not keep confidential when you're sharing any details about other people's lives that you don't want to share, but your group won't just start up a conversation with you afterwards about what you shared. First, they'll ask permission, or usually wait and you might say at the end, I would welcome any feedback or any follow-up that you might have, but certainly ask if you're going to follow up afterwards with someone. It really should be the one who shared who takes the lead in terms of deciding whether or not to do it more. But there have been members of my group who have sometimes said, I felt the need to pray for you. I wonder if it would be okay to talk about this. And then I've always said yes. If you want to pray for me, I'd love to talk about it. But, that's not always the situation. Sometimes a person may have revealed more than they expected to, and they feel tender about it and need to pick their own time to speak about it.
Great. I'm aware that there are others on this call who have had experience with this, and I would invite you to come in, but maybe we'll hear from a question from Wendy. She asked how the group forms. Do friends choose one another, or are they put together by an organizer? And once we've heard the answer to that, I'm seeing that Janet has an interest in having an opportunity to speak. So how do these groups form in your experience, Marcelle?
Well, they form in different ways. One way is you can just invite some people that you think would be good. Another way that many people have formed it is they go to their worship and ministry committee or to their meeting in some other way and say, I'm interested in forming this group and letting people in the meeting know about it. Oftentimes an information session is set up so that people who are interested can come and learn about it. Maybe they'll get some resources and read about them too, and then people decide if they want to make a commitment to participating in a group like this.
Great. So Janet, you had a question or a comment?
I sort of had something to add to Susan's question, and I don't know if it's appropriate. I actually don't have a lot of experience as a member of the Faithfulness group.
Come on.
However, I'm aware that the real key is that it's spirit leading the person, and it's faithfulness to listening to that guidance. And so if it's someone that you're friends with, there are friend type conversations you can have. But I think that I would urge caution in the beginning of a faithfulness group to be empowering one another rather than assuming that this discussion is something to be ongoing. It's maybe one of the areas where it's different from a focus person in a clearness committee also, where that would be more appropriate. So
Right.
I can think of different things, and I'm not sure whether that is relevant to what you were bringing up, Susan, but I wanted to say it.
Wonderful. Is there anyone else that has something that they'd like to offer or ask? Paulette.
Yes, I'm thinking about my meeting, and if I went to Ministry and Council and asked for support around forming this, it seems like there's a certain kind of person, I don't know, that would be even good to be in a group. I'm thinking about specific individuals in our meeting that I'm thinking if they were in my group, I just feel like they wouldn't have the skills to ask good questions or something like that. So it seems like there's skills that are relevant even in this kind of group. and how do you ask people, invite people without other people maybe being hurt, or those kinds of things come up all the time. But yeah, I just wonder if there's any kind of insights about that.
If I may, what I asked a friend of mine who who I'd done a lot of work with in my meeting to suggest some people, and she suggested, as I was saying earlier, some people that I knew well, and some people I didn't know at all, and I just trusted her to do that. And I thought if this is about the spirit, I should trust. I shouldn't just sort of pick people that I knew because it just sort of felt that was going to sort of close the experience off in ways that perhaps would be unfortunate. So, but I understand the concern about I would be a little bit nervous about being that open, if you will, to the spirit. So I asked somebody that I trusted to help put it together for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you.
My experience too is that that this is a two-way street. That not only is the focus person served, but the other people who are present with the focus person are helped to practice this thing of inquiring of others about their journey with spirit, or however one cares to name that. And as Lynda mentioned, there's that time at the end where we self-assess, and that's a part of Marcelle's process, part of the Shalane process. And that allows us to sort of name a place where something may have gone a little off. I don't know,
Awry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps nurture. In a Quaker setting, we would call it the capacity for eldering. In another setting, I'm aware that both Nancy and Kathleen are here. We might say that it's a way of helping a person with spiritual direction, skills, and being present in meaningful ways.
Can I also say that with my group, one of the things that we did was I believe we if I recall correctly, we sort of named a period of time in which we would commit to meeting with each other, and then we would evaluate to see if we wanted to go on. And so that might be a helpful tool for sort of evaluating to determining how you might feel participating in the group. You may decide that, after a certain period of time that maybe this, something about this is not the right formation or the right tool for you. So that might be a helpful, some helpful information to people on this call.
Great. Nancy says, if Kathleen McAlpin is still here, I would love to hear her take on this as a spiritual director. I find the process very compatible with spiritual direction. Also, I am regularly kind of blown away by the movement of the spirit when our MAG groups meets. Like Viv says, each member is filled and graced. Kathleen, I'll unmute you here. Hold on. You might need to do it yourself. Okay, here we go.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So as I've been listening and been very touched and inspired by all of your experiences, I've been wondering, in my life, how might this unfold? So one group, and I'm not clear yet, I need some further reflection and prayer, would be a small peer group that I have, that I work with. The other would be some member, we have what we call conversation circles. And we don't meet as frequently as you've been speaking. And generally, we are kind of given a topic, given almost like work to do that we would work together and then give feedback to leadership for them to move forward in a certain way. So I could see, but our conversation circle is about 15 people. And so that would be too big.
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel that this process isn't very inviting for us as faithful members of the Sisters of Mercy to be about something like this in a more sustained and committed way. Then I was thinking of, how do I offer this to, let's say, others? So if I was offering this kind of getting together with others, let's say parishioners, I would be considered more like a facilitator than a peer. So that doesn't feel right. If I were in a group, I'd have to be a peer with the others.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Nancy's question about spiritual direction, I think that listening is such a deep skill that's needed for spiritual direction, and evoking the experience of the other, especially at a depth, at a level of spirit, is very consistent with the practice and ministry of spiritual direction. So I see it very much almost like a peer group, spiritual direction group, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in those as well. Presently, I'm not. But so I think it's very consistent with the process, the skills, and the intent of spiritual direction, of helping to be with another, to see how God is at work with them and how they want to respond in active life as they move forward. How does that sound, Nancy?
She may be typing, and we'll get to hear from her.
Okay. Sounds right on. Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Kathleen. For those who don't know, Kathleen was this, I think, it's not sort of like her claim to fame, but it's mine. She was my supervisor during my spiritual direction program, and she served in amazing ways. So I'm so grateful to her. And has been, Kathleen, was it president of SDI, or what's the term that they use?
At that point, I was chair of the board for about 5 years. I've been on the board for 2 now, but a participant in the Board of Spiritual Directors International for 6 years.
So we're talking about heavyweights here in the spiritual sense. Any further questions before we say thank you and offer our gratitude? The other thing, as I said, if you go to releasingministry.org and go to the tab that says About, and then pick Releasing Ministry Alliance Ops, you'll see more opportunities, some of which include the ability to participate in that program that Marcelle and I will be offering on November 23rd. That's a Saturday at Friends Center in Center City, either live stream or in person from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you're participating from a distance, it would be terrific to have a small group of people that are participating with you. And you'll be able to do the things that we're doing in Philadelphia. Kathleen, what I see is sounds right on. This is from friend Nancy Hartsook. Sounds right on. Important point about not being a facilitator, but a co-participant.
Thank you, Nancy.
So any further questions, friends? Susan Chess says she wants to be in a group. Maybe I'll wait until after the November workshop. I think that would be a tremendous choice, Susan, and bring people there with you. You know, whether they're interested in being in a group or your group or whatever the case may be. Right. So thank you all for being with us. Blessings as you travel to your beds or wherever you're about to go. And I'm grateful for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viv and all. Okay.
This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Leave meeting. Good night now.
Bye-bye.
It's not working. They're not letting me leave.
I'll see what I can do to help you.
Leave meeting.
Hello?
Hi, Lynda.
Hey there, Lynda.
Okay. I was just like, are we still going to do a little feedback?
Yeah,
I thought everybody hung up. Like,
no,
okay,
the co-facilitators are going to remain on while others exit the session.
Jorge, it's great to see you. Say hi to Ruth. I don't know if you heard.
I don't know if he's hung up.
You're still recording, Viv.
Okay, thanks. And recording.